welcome. Today we have Reagan on our podcast today, and I love Reagan so much. She is one of my absolute best friends, so I'm really excited to have her on the podcast today because I know that she has so much goodness to share, and she is just such like a nurturing woman, and I feel like she has such a great sense of her own femininity, so I'm so excited for her to be on the podcast today and share all of those stories and lessons that she's learned with all of you. All right, so with that, Reagan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do we need to know about Reagan?
I don't know. What do I... Okay. Let's see. I'm just gonna start off with like my family.
Yeah.
I come from a family of I have an older brother. He's about like a year and a half older than me. And then I have a younger sister who's 11 months younger than me. And then I have my younger brother, and he's 11 right now. So, he's a little away from the rest of us. And then I live with my dad. That's where we're at right now. Let's see, what else? I mean, I go to Benedictine College.
Yes, she's a sophomore. What are you studying, Reagan?
I'm studying exercise science. Health, wellness, exercise science, general health care. So, like, all that sports medicine type stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. Introduction questions. Hard,
Yeah. What made you choose your major?
So, my dad's an athletic trainer. And he's been an athletic trainer for, longer than I've been alive. He's been at the same place forever. So, like, I'd go and I'd fill up water bottles for him as he's, like, going to help an athlete out. And I just thought sports medicine's always been so cool. So, I always kind of liked that. And I like the fact that I can tell my dad what's happening with me with anything. And he, like, knows it in an instant. I want to be like that. I want, like, if someone's hurting and they come to me, I want to be able to be like, oh, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's this, and provide them with care. Like, I just something about that is really cool for me.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about you, too, is that, like, that what you want to do comes up from a place of wanting to help others, and it's something that you find interesting, but it's so clear to see, like, that nurturing side, and that you just want to, like, care and make sure everyone's okay and be able to be like, okay, this is what's wrong with you, but here's what we're going to do to help fix it and make it better. So that's really, really great. How do you experience your faith life, like, on a daily basis? Usually, what does your faith look like right now?
Well, let's see. It's so easy to do it here. Like,
for sure.
Here versus back home is insane. Like, so first of all, one thing that I've, like, really liked doing is I like going to confession a lot. Just because it's, like, I know, like, most of the things you're like, well, did I sin? Did I do that? Like, it's, So I try to go on, like, a regular basis. Like, at least, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every week if I want to, I try to do that. And from that, I go to adoration, like, right after. Just because that's when I feel the most that I could talk to God, is when I'm ready, is when I'm, not, like, sort of not really healed from my sins, but, like, forgiven. And I've told him what I've done. And I come back and I'm just praying to him and I'm just talking to him. And that's always something that I find really cool. And it's different from back home because, here we can go all the time. And back home it's sort of like, you gotta find out which mass and then which church has it and just stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to practice my faith on this campus than it is home. Let's see.
Yeah. How have you found ways to make sure that you're still practicing your faith back home, even though it's harder? Are there, like, specific ways that you pray or things that you do to make sure that your faith life is still staying alive? Because a lot of people don't even have the experience of going to Benedictine College or a college like Franciscan or Ave Maria, where they're seeing Catholics every single day and, like, really, really heartfelt, genuine Catholics. And then when you're back home, it's like you don't have the sacraments so easily available. Like, we have perpetual adoration here all the time, literally, like, downstairs in our basement. Which, like, you don't have that at home. Like, that it's not the same there. So how do you make sure that you're still getting the fruits from your faith at home when it's not so easily accessible. And it's almost like being tested in a way.
Yeah.
When you go back home, because it's so easy to believe it here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say back home, what I do is, because I really like helping my little brother. I really like talking to him, and because he's growing so much in his faith. You know, like, he's always been, you know, like usual little kids, they're afraid of ghosts.
I'm still afraid of ghosts.
Oh, yeah, they're scary. They're scary. My dad will ask him every now and then. He's like, oh, TJ, like, are you afraid? Like, you know, like, there's monsters in your room. And TJ's like, no, because God.
Oh, that is so sweet.
He goes, no, there's God. And I'm like, okay. So I talk to him about it, and when he asks me questions, that's like, oh, okay, like, you know, I know this. And it really just, when he asks me for advice about stuff like that, it's, I can use what I've learned here, or like even what I've learned in my previous years of Catholic school to help them. And it kind of reaffirms me that, like, yes, like, this is what I believe. This is what, you know, this is how I want to show that I love God. This is kind of, you know, like, helping. Or even my dad. My dad grew up Lutheran. So he converted when he married my mom. And he still asks questions, which is so cool. Because, I mean, he's been Catholic longer than me. Because he's... Yeah.
Older.
Yeah, he's older, yeah. And he still asks questions, and he's like, okay, well, what do you think about this? Like, at the dinner table, just randomly. And we're like, okay. And then, you know, we'll pray about it. We talk about it. And it's really cool. It's just, yeah.
That's so important, too.
Yeah.
Like, talking, especially having younger siblings. Like, I have two younger brothers, too, and they'll ask me a ton of questions. Yeah. And it's good when people are asking questions. Yeah. Like, if you're not asking questions about your faith, you're not doing it right.
Literally, yeah.
Like, you need to ask questions, because if there aren't moments of doubt, then do you really... Not that it's like, do you really believe if you don't doubt sometimes? But it shows that you're really thinking about your faith, and it wasn't this thing that was handed to you to do. Yeah. What kind of conversations, like, what advice do you give to your younger brother? Because, I mean, he is 11, right? Yes. So he can't grasp things the same way that we do. How do you go about explaining concepts like, you know, the Holy Trinity or the Eucharist, that things, like, we can't even fully understand it? Yeah. And we're older. Yeah.
So, I mean, something like even I struggled with was definitely like, how is the Eucharist actually God? Like, how is that even possible? It looks like bread. You know? It, like, you know? And my mom always told me, and it was just kind of like the same thing of like, do you receive on your hand? Or like how do you receive him? You know? And I remember when TJ was getting his first communion, because like in Arizona, you get communion and confirmation at the same time. Oh, okay. You get it in 3rd grade. Yeah. You get it in 3rd grade. Yeah. All right. So he's already confirmed.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So I remember we went to Mass one day, and my mom always told me, like, you know, she always told me why she received on the tongue. And, you know, I would usually only, like, you know, I'd go like this because I wouldn't want the priest, like, fingers to accidentally go in my mouth, and I'd be like, hey, I don't know if I want that. But my mom always said, like, if you are Catholic and, you know, we believe that this is truly God. We believe that 100% this is Jesus. So how are we worthy to touch him? How are we worthy to hold him? You know? And it's like, I really took that, and that's what I tell TJ. I tell him the same thing, you know, because when he got confirmed, you know, he walked up and, which is,
totally fine. I mean, he's in 3rd grade. He's still learning. Exactly. We're all still learning.
Exactly. Totally fine. But I said the same thing to him, you know, because he was like, well, this is just basically, like, you know, how is it not Jesus before it's consecrated, and then it's Jesus now? Yeah. You know? And I'm like, well, that's, like, the whole part of the Mass. Like, that's the beauty of it.
That's the miracle of the Eucharist, is that Jesus completely transforms an object without us even noticing.
Yeah. And it was also really cool because, little shout out to James. So I went to Mass. James went to Mass with my family.
Should we say who James is?
Yeah, James is my boyfriend, for anyone who doesn't know. Yeah. But anyway, James went to Mass with us one time, and TJ saw that he receives on his knees.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And TJ asked questions. He's like, well, why does he do that? And I'm like, well, it's out of respect. Like, James, the way James sees it is, how, if this is God, why wouldn't I be coming to him on my knees?
Yeah. Totally.
And now TJ, an 11-year-old boy, receives on his knees.
Really? That is so impressive.
Yeah. And it's just
wow.
It's so cool. Like, he asks questions and he understands it. So he's like, okay, like, I understand it. And that's what he does.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have words, because that is so beautiful to hear. Someone with such a young heart, yet having so much wisdom. And I think that's part of the childlike faith is, one, I mean, it means like total dependency on God, like a child is dependent on their parent, but also kids are curious, so they'll ask questions, but once they have a solid answer, it's like they will wholeheartedly believe that. Like my younger brother Aaron is 13, but throughout middle school, in elementary school, he always had this problem of, like, his friends would tell him something, which he would then tell us, and it was so clearly false.
Yeah.
That we're like, Aaron, where did you get this information from? And he's like, my friends. But he heard it, and he trusted his friends, so he took that as truth. And it's so good to see your brother using that in such a profound way. Yeah. And that, you and James both had an influence in that too. Yeah. Is so cute.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is. Cool. So do you also receive kneeling and on the tongue?
So I go to Mount Carmel. It's a little Catholic school. That's actually where I went to school. Shout out Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So now they have kneelers set up for where people can kneel, or they can also stand. So when I have the kneelers, I do. Okay. But it's also like, I don't know, it's mostly like a kind of like anxiety type thing. I know it sounds really bad.
I know exactly what you mean.
You go up and you're like, okay, is it time? Like, do I kneel now? And then I always end up just not. So it's really kind of depends on the day.
It takes a long time to get used to. I remember right before COVID is when I kind of started taking my faith more seriously, and then we had the pandemic, so we weren't able to receive for months and months and months. Yeah. And then when I got back, I had been talking to a lot of different people about receiving and that kind of stuff, and I made a commitment to receive on my tongue. And then when I got to Benedictine, I saw people kneeling, and that, from my area, like, you just don't do that. Even receiving on the tongue for me is, like, weird. Yeah. Like, I was probably only the only person in my congregation for a while that I noticed receiving on the tongue. But I mean, I've gone to different parishes too, and I've seen more of that. It just depends on where you go, but even kneeling is like the next step up of people don't expect that. And then when I got to Benedictine, I saw so many people kneeling, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I'd heard people say things about kneeling, but I was so nervous to start kneeling while I received, just because nobody else does it back home. Yeah. And even at Benedictine, I was like, I know a lot of people do it, but I'm, like, so nervous to start doing it. And then once I got in the routine of doing it, I enjoyed it more, and I was able to be reverent in it. Yeah. Usually I don't kneel when I'm at home, though, just because it can go both ways. It's good for reverence, obviously. Yeah. There's a quote, someone told me this, like, when you see Jesus for the first time, what are you going to do? Are you going to just, like, run up and stand in front of him, or are you going to, like, kneel at his feet? And, like, obviously you're going to kneel at his feet. Well, I'd probably give him a hug first, or maybe kneel and then give him a hug. I don't know. We'll figure it out when it gets there. When we get there, hopefully. And so I think it's, like, important to kneel. But in my sacraments and liturgy class last year, Dr. Zia kind of talked about how if you're in a place where they're not accustomed to kneeling, sometimes the most reverent thing that you're trying to do can be the least reverent thing that you're trying to do. Where, say there's an old lady behind you and you kneel and she thinks that you're falling, or something like that, which, I mean, take that as you will, where if kneeling is something that's so important to you, like, kneel for sure, but I know that I can still have the same amount of reverence in my heart by receiving on the tongue. Yeah. Which is also, like, I would love to talk more about receiving on the tongue, too, because it's fairly an uncommon practice at the moment. Yeah, definitely. Especially with the pandemic, too. Like, they banned receiving on the tongue for a long time. Yeah. Which, take that as you will, but some of us, like me, were not too happy about that. Yeah. But I think it's, for people who don't, like, receive on the tongue or don't know the reverence of it, it's, a lot of the reasons that we do it is because when you're in Mass, no other place on earth is like Mass.
Yeah.
Like, where else do you kneel? Where else do you, like, when you do, like, the fault, when you're, like, hitting your chest. Like, you don't do that anywhere else, or talk about how much you've, like, sinned and how you
where you're admitting that you're wrong.
Yes. And all together, like, it's a whole congregation recognizing that we're sinners and in need for God's mercy, and then receiving Jesus after that all together. And so when you go to receive Jesus on the tongue, it's something completely different than anything else. Like, what else do you eat? Chicken fingers with your fingers too, like your chicken tenders, like that's it. And I don't want to consume Jesus the same way that I would consume a pizza.
I know. And it's like, it's not like an everyday food. You know, it's not, it's literally Jesus.
Yeah. It's not meant to nourish your body. It's meant to nourish your soul.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's always something that, like, one of my high school teachers, same thing, whatever. Yeah. He, he has 3 young kids. And he's raising them, how he was raised, a strong Catholic family. And they go to their church, and everybody receives on the tongue.
Really?
Everybody does.
How beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like, to the point where it's like, it's weird to receive on the hands. And, like, his kids will ask questions, and they're like, well, why is this? And he was like, well, it's not food. Yeah. The Eucharist is not food. It's not something that you just munch on. Like,
it does kind of taste good, though, sometimes. Sometimes it's a little stale, but...
Yeah, but it's like, even when I was little and I was receiving my first communion, my dad always told me that, like, he never chews it. He never chews the Eucharist.
Really?
He kind of folds it with his tongue.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that's something that, like, now I'm like, oh, I can't, because I don't want to get, like, the Eucharist stuck in my teeth.
That's the worst when that happens. Yeah. I'm like... trying to get it out with my tongue, and then like, this is kind of awkward.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's always something that, like, I do now, because my dad was like, well, I, want to receive Jesus, and I know that he's not, but the Eucharist is not food, so why would I chew it like everyday food?
Interesting. I've never heard of that, but I'm gonna have to, I think I might have to reflect on that one for a while. It also gives me the same vibes, though, as when I was in elementary school. I went to a Catholic elementary school, and I remember my friends. I was young, so I did not know. I knew it was Jesus, but I didn't know really a whole lot. I didn't realize, like, the reverence that I should have had towards the Eucharist. And my friends and I would have competitions to see how long we could keep the Eucharist in our mouths. No. I know. Looking back on it, that's so bad. Yeah. I just had no idea. Yeah. No clue. And I was pretty good at it. I'm not going to lie. Okay. It gets I'm not going to describe it, actually. So don't do that. Yeah, no. Don't do that. Be reverent in it. Don't be like 8-year-old Eve. Who would have competitions with a friend to see how long we could keep the Eucharist in our mouth and see if it could last until we were back to class.
Oh my god.
I don't think it ever did. I don't think we ever... I mean, it dissolves pretty quick because it's so thin. Yeah.
Like, it's, like, stuck to, like, the roof of your mouth.
Yeah, that's exactly what you would do. It gets stuck to the roof of your mouth, so then it would dissolve slower. Yeah. Don't take that as advice.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. That's... I love that. How has your faith life evolved, do you think, since, I don't know, like, I don't know when you really started taking your faith seriously, but, like, how do you think it's evolved most notably?
See, so something that, like, my family has always been really strong in recent years has been our faith. Just because, I mean, my mom had so much stuff.
Like, everything you guys have been through.
Yeah, so many medical problems, and throughout that, my dad should be a saint for just everything that that he did for her. Like, she was an alcoholic, and then from that she started getting sick, and just hospital visits between hospital visits, and it was crazy. But my dad was always the guy to, like, like, if my dad is still faithful, I can still be faithful. And that was sort of how I lived my life, because I'm like, well, my dad, you know, like, it really, we don't know if my mom will be in the hospital now, or if she can take us to school or anything. And my dad would always have to come up with a plan for it. But he was never afraid, because he knew that he'd be okay. And he would tell God, and he's like, I know that I am meant to be with this woman, even though everything is happening.
Yeah.
And it was just always something that we always stuck by. And our family was really close. Like, our family's always been really close, even though, you know, all these things keep happening. And it was always something that's really cool. And then, it wasn't until actually I came to BC that, like, I was like, okay, like, you know, I'm just sort of, like, I'm Catholic because my family's Catholic. Yeah. You know, just stuff like that. And there was a point that I was mad at God. I will say it. Like, I don't blame you for what you've been through. Yeah, and it's just, there was a point, you know, and I was like, you know, like, you know. But then once my mom passed away, because she passed away when I was 16, so about 3 years ago, I was like, okay, well, like, that can't be it. You know, that can't be how I remember my mom, or how, you know, like, there can't be a point where, like, I just never see her again. Ever. Yeah. It can't be that. Like, there has to be something else. Like, I will see my mom again. Yeah. You know? Otherwise, like, how am I believing what I believe? You know? Right. It's sort of, you know? And, yeah. Like, there was a point when I was a freshman in high school. My mom was really sick. And to the point where, like, she couldn't stand anymore. And yeah, it was just really bad. And she was in the hospital for 72 days.
Oh my
freshman year of high school. So that was a lot on us.
Oh yeah, that's a crazy amount of time.
And there were times where she would have emergency surgeries, and we'd have to call all of our family down from different states, and we're like, well, this could be it.
Oh wow.
Like, this could be it. There were multiple times where we just didn't know. And my dad, you know, finally, like, you know, he just got down on his knees and he said, like, he was like, Jesus, take her, heal her. Like, she can't keep living like this. We can't keep living like this. It's not fair. Right. You know? Yeah. And it was just, like, all the pain and the suffering that she experienced. You know, just all of that. It was too much, you know? And, you know, to the point where I was like, yeah, take her, heal her. Like, she's not happy. You know? Yeah. So, and then I went on a Kairos retreat.
Like, wait, how did I not know? I went on a Kairos retreat too.
Yeah, I went on a Kairos retreat junior year of high school.
That's when I went.
Yeah, so it was like 3 months after my mom. And I was like, okay, I need it.
Oh, really?
It came at a really good time.
Yeah,
and my brother actually led that retreat.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, my brother, he was like one of the leaders, which was so cool because my brother never actually mentioned his faith. He never was like, I'll pray about it. You know, he never mentioned any of that. Like, he'd go to Mass every Sunday, but that's just because our family would go every Sunday. Right. But it was at this retreat where I realized that my brother was actually really strong in his faith.
Oh, wow, how beautiful.
And he was talking about, you know, how he had to grow up. Because, you know, he had to grow up so fast because of everything happening in our life. And we all had to. Right. And he was mentioning it, and he was like, but I'm not mad at God. You know, and I was like, well, like, he's a mama's boy. What is he doing? Yeah. And it was crazy. And from that, I realized that, like, God took my mom to heal her. It was her time. Yeah. You know? And now I believe she's watching over me, and I pray all the time. Like, you know, I know it's like, oh, if someone's in heaven, you don't need to pray for them. But I want to make sure, if that makes sense.
Right. I don't think there's anything wrong, especially because, I mean, I don't know how prayers for purgatory works or to get people into heaven, but I mean, what we do know is that they're outside of time. Yeah. So, I mean, if you pray for her whole life, that could be like, you know, it does.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's so unfathomable right now. Yeah. And it's, you know, I still pray for her, but I'm like, I believe that she is in heaven. And I believe that she's in a better place. Sorry, the car. I was like, I'm not laughing about that, I promise.
Reagan.
But yeah, and it's just, that's something that my family has always been very strong in, is my dad has been, well, you have to trust God with everything. Right. And there wasn't a point that I didn't, because I trusted my dad and he trusted God.
Yeah.
So that was sort of, kind of went along with my family.
Yeah, what a great way to lead your family in that too.
Yeah.
Like very, very much taking his role as like Saint Joseph.
Yeah.
And being the protector of your family through that and leading you guys through such a difficult time. And it's something, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this, like a family should never have to experience the things that you experience at such a young age. And I see a lot of how that impacted you. Like, I didn't know you in high school. I didn't know you when you were going through all of this, but I see how it's impacted you every day now, and like the major that you want to go into, and how you want to help people and help people heal and be there for them when they're going through a really difficult time in their life, or even like with everything that I've been through with my health. Like, I feel like you have been someone who I've been able to consistently turn to in that, because I know that like you can care for people so deeply because of what you've been through. And like it's unfortunate that the way in which that quality was really impressed upon in you, and I'm glad that God was able to make that good out of this situation. And what advice would you have for people going through some, like, seeing someone else that they love going through something really difficult, and how to be there for them, or even just like how to get through that grieving time?
I mean, the easy thing would just say like have faith, but there's so many things that, you know,
it plays into.
But I would just say, like, just hold on, you know, just hold on, and things will get better. Like, it's gonna be hard, and, you know, when a family member is sick, let alone like when your parent is sick, you have to grow up, like, automatically. You have to grow up, and you have to become, you know, like, you're basically a second parent to your siblings. I've totally seen that with you and your younger brother and your younger sister, especially. And it's like that's what has to happen. But if you hold on, and you know that it will get better, then it will. You know, I don't know how else I could just, you know, say it, because it's very hard, and it's definitely something that I would never wish upon any person or anyone living like that. It's, you know, just, I don't, you know, there aren't a lot of words that I could say, you know, if that makes sense. Yeah, because it's like, it's handling the cards that you've been dealt. Yeah. And you don't know that you can go through it until you're going through it. Exactly. Because it's like, I mean, like how you said it. It's true. Like, you just kind of go along with it as it's happening. And like, my dad always says that my family lives in the crucible. That's what he says. We live best in chaos. Yeah. Like, he always said, because my grades were always the best when my mom was in the hospital. Which is really weird. That's interesting. That's a weird thing. That is. Yeah. And, you know, like, when COVID hit, and it hit everybody so hard, my family was getting a break, which is weird. Because, like, if my mom was alive during the pandemic, it would have killed her. Yeah. Definitely. Or, I mean, it would have probably impacted your life so much, because you probably would have had to quarantine along with her. Yes, I never would have left the house, ever. You know, and it would have hit my family so hard. But all these people, and like, it was, granted, not like, just, you know, saying the pandemic was nothing, but like, it really, my family kind of, we were like, it's weird. Like, yeah, we're quarantined, but like, we don't have to worry as much. Right, because you had a break from craziness and probably doing things with school and extracurricular activities. And did that time give you time to heal then too, do you think? Because that was shortly after your mom had passed away, right? Yeah, it was It was like a year later.
A year, okay.
Or it was that year. So like she passed away this summer, and then that junior year was
right. Yeah, that March.
Yeah,
would have been okay.
So it kind of just like gave us, you know, like, oh, this is our life now. This is what we have to get used to. And then pandemic hit, and we were like, wow, this was a little weird. Like,
yeah,
you know. But it was also like, I don't know. I don't treat my mom as a burden, as she, you know, I wouldn't say that. But it was also knowing that she was safe and that I didn't need to take care of her, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
If that
right.
makes sense. Like, I know that she's in a better place, and I know that I don't have to worry about her anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Like, it's one of those miracles in disguise.
Yeah.
That she's able to be in, you know, in heaven in full contentment.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about.
Yeah, about, like, did she take her medicine? You know, if she's driving, is she okay? Just
right.
stuff like that. You know, that, like, I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Right. Things even that, like, I mean, you were a high schooler. Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I never would have thought about those things with my mom growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just interesting to think about. And
yeah. It was weird. And then, you know, like, all these families talking about how hard it was, but it was sort of a relief for us. You know, like, the way my family, like, handles stuff like that, or like
right,
chaos.
You're probably so good at stress management,
problem solving. I'm not very good at stress.
Not very. Sorry, I shouldn't have phrased it quite like that. But
yeah.
You know, like you see a barrier to something you're going through,
yeah.
and you're probably able to work through that.
Yeah, and my family really comes together in the chaos, which is kind of interesting. Like, we're closest when it's chaotic.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Right. I think it kind of almost like you don't believe in God until, like, you need him for something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But not quite like that, but it's
yeah.
kind of like you can bond over that
yeah.
experience.
Definitely.
And was there any ways that you really saw God working through that time in your life?
It was really, I saw God working through my dad all the time, constantly. Because my dad would work, I mean, he's an athletic trainer, so he works all the games, like, no matter what sporting event, always. And he would come home and you know, when we were too young, he'd cook dinner, and he'd get us to practices, and he'd get us all these places, and my dad would do it all. And I would really see God through my dad. Because even though my mom really needed, like, you know, he was like a nurse to my mom, too.
Right, yeah, he had so much on his plate.
He had so much on him, but the fact that my mom couldn't be there for us, God had my dad. And my dad was our rock, really. He really was, and he did it all. And it was just amazing, because when I knew that my dad had it in control, I wouldn't stress as much, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So that was sort of like a stress relief for me and for my family, because I mean, we had my dad. We had this amazing guy who wouldn't quit for anything because he loves his family, because he loves God. And he wouldn't give up his faith even though his life is crumbling.
Yeah,
and
how beautiful.
Just, yeah.
Kind of like Job, but
yeah.
real life. Like,
yeah, and it was amazing to watch.
Yeah, that is. Do you think that you have a better understanding of God as a father because of your dad?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because it's like, I don't know, I love my dad. He's a goofball.
I love your dad too. I haven't talked to him a lot, but he's just great.
He's a goofball, but he just, everything that he went through and is still going through now, like losing his spouse of 20 years.
Yeah.
His wife, his best friend, you know, but also remembering everything that happened and raising a child. He was 8 when my mom passed away.
Yeah, TJ, right?
Yeah.
TJ was 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
TJ was 8 when my mom passed away. So now my dad realizes this and has to raise him differently from how me and my siblings were raised. Me,
Sure.
Drew, and Gabby.
Right.
Because we were all, like, right now, she's 18, I'm 19, and Drew just turned 21.
Right, so you're a little older.
Yeah, for a time it was like 18, 19, 20. So it was like, we all kind of we had our own little group, and then 7 years later, TJ was born. So it's like, he's obviously going to be raised in a different time for our family.
Right.
And it's just something that my dad he struggles with. And a lot of the stuff that, even when TJ was born, my mom was on medication. She didn't know she was pregnant with him till 6 months along.
Yeah.
And from that, he had to go through withdrawal from those medications. And for a baby, that's a lot.
Right.
For a 2-week-old baby, that's
right. And for a family to watch your new brother go through something like that, not being able to console them because they're not going to understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
A day old.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, that's just, the stuff that my family works through, and my dad still constantly does, because my little brother was diagnosed with epilepsy last year. So, he gets seizures and a lot of stuff, and we don't know what sets it off. It's like, it's something that we're still working through, and we're realizing, it's like a different time, if that makes sense.
Right. How can someone best support a family that's gone through things like you have gone through? Like me as someone hearing your story, what are ways that we can, not necessarily help you through it, but best support the things that you've had to deal with?
Honestly, for what I would say, because like my sister, one of the things she's always said is she just needs someone to talk to. Just people to listen. Like people who have been through what I've been through, or people who've been through worse. I know people have been through worse. And they just need someone to listen. It's not really someone, like, we don't need therapy, or, maybe. Who knows?
It depends on the situation.
Yeah, it depends on the situation, but it's like, just someone to listen. Not tell, like, maybe you'll do better. Like, we don't need to hear that. It's just sort of, like, I'm here for you. It's that aspect of it. Like, I don't know, the community, my high school community was really amazing. The football team, because my brother was on the football team. He was a lineman. And when they found out my mom was sick, or even when my mom passed away, we had meals. Like, people came together and they brought us meals every night.
How amazing.
Which is insane. And it's like having a community saying that I'm here for you. There's nothing like that. It's amazing, like, what you hear. Or how I always say, like, I always tell people, like, one of the worst days, but one of the best days of my life was my mom's funeral.
Really?
Just, because obviously, like, I didn't have her anymore. But the amount of love my family was shown on that day was beautiful. It was amazing. Like, there were people there that, like, I haven't talked to in forever. But they were there because they cared. Yeah. And they wanted to show that they're here for us. They're here for me. And just the amount of support that we were given on that day and that whole year, really. Like, we couldn't have gone through what we've been through without the support of everybody.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense too. And hearing you say that, it's interesting to think of, or in a way, I feel like it shows God's love for us, that you have been through so much, but yet you're sitting here saying, like, all you need to do is, like, be here for us, which is almost something so simple.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we, like, second guess ourselves sometimes, like, the power of just sitting down, and you don't even have to talk, but just
be there.
Being there for somebody, and the way that God made us for that community, too. And I think about that a lot too, like conversations, like why is talking to someone so interesting to us? Yeah. Like even listening to, like, whoever is listening to this podcast is listening to this podcast because they want to hear us talk, but like why? Yeah. Why is that so interesting to us? Why does that intrigue us? And I think it parallels to what you were just saying, of that's just the way that God wired us, that talking to each other is so important, and knowing that you have a community behind you supporting you through something so difficult in your life. And do you think that part of the reason you had such a, like, you went to a Catholic school, do you think that played a large role in how much, like, that type of, was there like a different feeling of support behind it? Do you think it would have been different if you weren't a part of a Catholic community?
Yeah, so when it was like preschool to 5th grade, I was in a public school.
Okay.
And that was, my mom, that was mostly her mental health, just stuff like that,
okay.
And she was an alcoholic while I was at public school. And there were some people who oh yeah, we're here for you. It was pretty hard, but also I was little, so I don't really remember
Right, it's hard
that.
to say.
And then once I was in 6th grade is when I moved to Catholic school, and then all through high school. And I do think it's because of that Catholic community, because it's that strong, we're parishioners at this, this church, my Catholic school, Mount Carmel. What a place.
Double shout out from Reagan.
Double shout out. And then St. Mary's, the high school I went to, it's just, it's a close community because, for one, you don't have thousands upon thousands of people going to this high school. It was 500. 500 of us. I knew my whole graduating class. I knew everybody.
Which is great.
Which is insane. That's insane. Most people don't have that. There's, my cousin graduated from a public school in Chandler, Arizona, and his graduating class was more than my entire school.
Really? Wow.
Which is insane. And it was just the community that we had because it was so small, and because we had those foundations and those aspects that they pushed upon us, we're there. And it was really cool. So I do think it is that Catholic community that people do show their, they pray for you and they help you, and it's just,
right.
It's
interesting too. I wonder if, I don't know enough people from public school or a public school that would have been the same size as your high school, that 500 people total.
Yeah.
If I don't have any authority to make this statement, but I wonder if you would still get that sense of support and know everyone in your graduating class.
Yeah.
If you weren't at a Catholic school, because I know, maybe high school is a lot different than college.
Yeah.
Where here at Benedictine, I know for a fact that I can walk across campus. I can walk from my dorm room to my academic building for class, and I'll pass 10 people that I know and can say hi to and be like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And people are so friendly, and it's because we have grown up in a culture of wanting to be there for people and wanting to help each other.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah, no,
but I'm just thinking out loud I wonder if it would be the same for a public school of being able to know your whole graduating class.
Yeah.
Like that. But I don't know, but nonetheless it's so beautiful to know that personally everyone in your graduating class, or go to a school like Benedictine College and walk around and you know everybody because everyone wants to take the time to know you. And even then, that's a testament to how we should live our own lives. Even if we're not at a community like Benedictine, going to another school and being the person that's friendly to everybody, that speaks volumes about who you are as a Catholic. You don't even have to tell people that you're Catholic, but setting that example of building a community and being friendly, even if you're it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, just being kind to people. You don't have to be liked or be popular, I think is what I'm looking for, in order to be nice to everybody, or you can be known as just something as simple as hi. I remember very vividly in high school, I was walking to class one day, and there was this girl, I didn't know her super well, but she was like, oh, hi, Eve. And the fact that, I don't know what it was about that moment of her just saying my name and saying hello to me in the hallway, even though I didn't know her super well. It is a memory I still have to this day, and that happened 4 years ago. Yeah. Of just, in that moment, I felt so special by that, just by her saying hi. That, it made my whole entire day. Yeah. The fact that she knew my name, she took the time to say hi, even though she didn't know me super well.
Yeah. And that's also, something that's really cool, because I do work at the coffee shop on this campus.
Yes.
Great place. But something that, we try to do is, we try to remember these people. Yeah. And we get to know their names and what they drink. And, it gets to the point where, oh, this person drinks this. like, okay,
yeah, you can almost get it ready ahead of time. You probably even know what time they're coming in.
Exactly. And it's like, that kind of happened back at my, my job back in Arizona. People would come in for 2 slices and a large drink every day, and I knew their name, and I was like, is it for here to go today? And it's like, that's something that people like, Yes. That's something that really shows people that you care, is like just learning their name. Yes. Asking their name and be like, hi, like, how are you?
Right.
Yeah.
And in a way that's evangelizing just by your example.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to overthink our evangelization efforts because we know that we can live our lives in such a different way. In fact, I saw, I guess maybe this doesn't really pertain to our conversation, but I'm going to say it anyways because I thought it was really cool. But I saw a little clip on TikTok of Sadie Robertson. Do you know who Sadie Robertson is? Yeah, she's just like a Christian public speaker. Yeah. And she was at a conference and she used this analogy of, like, when, say we were having this conversation right now and you got up and I saw in your pocket, like, your phone flashlight was on in your pocket. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing. Yeah. Like, it's not, her flashlight's not supposed to be on right now. Or, like, if we were just, like, talking and the flashlight was on, I'd be like, hey, like, your flashlight's on. Like, just so you know. Yeah. You might want to turn it off. Yeah. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. I'll, like, quick turn it off. But, like, if you're in the dark and you have that flashlight on, like, I use my flashlight all the time when I'm trying to get in my room and my roommate's sleeping and I just need to grab my pajamas. Yeah. And it's in the, like, your flashlight, when it's on in the right context, is very useful. Yeah. But when it's not in the right context, like in this conversation, it's kind of, like, embarrassing. And in the same way, when we're shining forth from our faith and it's unusual to what people see. Yeah. It's almost like you want to hide it. You want to, like, turn it off. Yeah. But you're not supposed to turn it off. You're supposed to keep that light shining forth from you and to not hide it. Because that's, like, that flashlight being on, it's not like it's even doing anything. Yeah. It's just living. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah. But it's giving it an example of your faith life in a different context that people aren't always going to see. Yeah. And just doing things like remembering their name or saying hello to them, asking how they're doing. It's so different. Or even when I was cashiering this last winter break, when someone took the time to talk to me, it's like, wow, this is like...
Yeah, or like they would ask you how you're doing. And
you're like,
well,
oh.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a customer ask me how I was doing, but, like, you could tell that they genuinely meant it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like, I even opened up to them more because of it. And it was like, oh, well, I did this today. And normally I'd just be like, good, how are you? Like, move on to the next thing. Yeah. But being able to talk to them and know more about that. And you did mention that you had a job. How do you balance going to school, having a job, doing, being on ministry team and everything else that you're doing, and then also making time to go to mass or have daily prayer time? What does that look like for you, and how do you do that?
A lot of planning into my day. Like, something that I don't like, I don't want to plan out my day hour by hour. I just don't.
I am not that way at all.
Like, I can't do that. Like, I know that people, people are like, like, it's good. Like, you plan times for rest. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I've tried and I can't do that. But, like, I mean, I look at my week and I do plan out my week. And I'm like, okay, well, I work this day and I have these classes and then I'll babysit this day and I have something for ministry this day. So there is a lot that goes in, but there's also a lot of time for me to be with my friends or me to just sit, Right. And something that I always do, when I pray, I usually pray right before I go to bed, just because that's what makes me, because I'm like, okay, I'm relieved. Like, I'm a scaredy cat. I'm a scaredy cat at night. Like, I get really scared. I'm not gonna lie. And it's just like, I just think about it and, like, all the things that, like, oh, dark. I don't know what's happening, just like things that come in my mind. And then I sit and I just think about my day and I think about everything that I did or things that I didn't do that, like, I'm like, oh, are people gonna remember this years after this, And I just sit there and I meditate on it and I talk to God and I'm like, well, this didn't work out, and it's definitely something that I make time for, even though it kind of sounds like I'm just doing it last minute. But I always pray right before I go to bed. And that's my big prayer time. Like, my 20 minutes of prayer every day is right before I go to bed. Whether even if I go to, like, we have a holy hour.
Right.
We have a holy hour every week. I go to that, or I'll go to Mass,
Right.
But I always make sure that I'm praying right before I go to bed.
Yeah. And it's important to have that staple, too. Like, your prayer doesn't need to be spontaneous. Like, you can pray throughout the day and have those spontaneous prayers, but you also need your routine.
Set time.
Yeah, your routine prayer. That you can count on it if you're so busy throughout the day. But, like, I set a time. I usually pray in the morning, like, do my more structured prayer time in the morning. And it's like when I know I have that morning time, not that I need to get in prayer time, but like I've set my day off on the right note because I know I spent that time beforehand. And for you, it's like you ended your day on such a good note of being able to connect with God.
And it's also just like when I pray at night, it gives me a sense that I'm safe,
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because it's like...
Totally.
Like how I said, like, you're worried about, I'm kind of afraid of the dark, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I'm afraid of the dark.
Me too.
It's scary.
It is. I don't know what it is,
Exactly.
but I'm totally convinced that there is a demon right behind me.
Yes, exactly.
And, I am on the top bunk
even
this
when
semester.
You're like turned towards the wall and you're like, the monster's gonna come get me. Like,
nope. So I'm on the top bunk, right? And so I have to turn off the light and not just run to my bed, run up the stairs to my bed. Yeah. And you will 100% catch me turning off the light, sprinting. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. As I'm like climbing the ladder.
Because my roommate, I've got like a little nightlight. I'm not gonna lie. I have
one too. It's like right there. Yeah.
It's like right next to my bed, and my roommate like really doesn't care. She's like, yeah, like, you can do what you want. So one thing, because I'll get home, like, I'll work a closing shift, so she'll be in bed before I do. But she always leaves the light on for me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Which is so sweet of her. Like, she does not need to do that. So the light switch is right next to my bed. So by the time I turn off the light, I'm already in bed. So I don't need to sprint. And I'm not like, I have 10 seconds to get to my bed. And I'm like, St. Michael the Archangel. But I'm actually, like, in my bed, and I know I'm safe. And then I'm like, okay, we're going to say a couple extra prayers if I'm scared.
Yeah. Or, like, having the rosary in my hand.
Yep.
That's what I do. If anyone else is ever scared, like, having the rosary, because then it's a repetitive prayer, too. Like, I don't even count the Hail Marys, per se. Like, I just have it in my hand, and I'm not, like, moving along the beads.
Yeah.
It's just, like, I have it in my hand. I'm saying a lot of Hail Marys. She's gonna protect me.
Yeah.
And everything is gonna be
A-okay.
Yep. That's something I did in Italy, too, because our villa, there were some creepy things that happened. It was definitely haunted, and it gave haunted vibes, too, because it's an old monastery.
Yeah. Like this dorm.
Like this dorm is an old monastery.
Super fun.
So, yes. Yeah. I definitely always have the rosary. With which, too, it's like there is so much confidence for me behind the rosary.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of stories that there are where, someone told me a story at the villa, actually. We had this conversation, and it was something about, was it Ted Bundy? Who went through a girl's dorm and, like...
Yeah, it was Ted Bundy.
Yes, he murdered a ton of girls. But there was one girl, he couldn't get into her dorm because she made a promise to her mom before she left college that she would pray a rosary before bed every single day. Like, her mom made her promise to do this. Mm-hmm. And so she was praying her rosary, didn't even finish the rosary, but she still had it in her hand while she was sleeping. Mm-hmm. And when Ted Bundy went to that room, he couldn't get the door open. It was not locked. Anything. He said that he asked to speak to a priest after he got caught at this event, this specific situation. Yeah. Because it was like someone was pushing against the door, but her and, I don't know if she had a roommate with her, but whoever was in this room was still sleeping. Yeah. No one was at the door. Dang. But this young woman, this young woman had been praying her rosary. And, I mean, there's no other explanation to why he could not get in their room. Yeah. And they were one of the only people who survived this event.
Yeah.
Which,
wow, I
yeah,
didn't even know
I
about
know,
that. Wow.
I know.
That's
So
like
I'm
chills down my back.
yes, it's like so terrible to think of the whole situation.
Yeah.
But we know that we can have hope in Our Lady's arms. And I always heard like this quote that it's like when you're praying the rosary and you fall asleep, it's like she's like cradling you to sleep.
Yeah. Also, something that my sister does every night, because she's also a little scaredy cat, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But what she does is when she's like trying to sleep and she feels just off, you know, or like she feels scared or frightened about something, she has holy water right next to her bed.
Oh,
and she'll just sprinkle it around the room.
Yeah.
Just a little spray every night whenever she's worried. It just helps her. And I think that's kind of cool.
Right. And it's important too to turn those times of being scared into times of prayer. Yeah, because how else are you not supposed to be scared?
Exactly.
Like, I can try falling asleep, but my heart is pounding a million
Literally.
miles an hour.
Yeah,
so.
and it's like, what else am I supposed to do? Like,
right, and that's like, not what else am I supposed to do? Like, that's not what we mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Like, that, it almost makes it a routine. Like, whenever I'm scared, it's like, my brain just knows to start praying. Yeah. And it's because of, like, those times of, like, being a little scared of the dark where I need to just, like, have a little extra comfort of praying that even something scary will happen in a movie and I'll be like, Hail Mary, full of grace. And I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, it's a movie.
I don't... We're, like, walking home at night, even though we're on this campus and it's, you know, this is, you know.
More safe than
exactly.
other areas. But,
and I'm like, Our Father, who art in heaven, as I'm walking home, and it works. You know, I feel safer. Yeah. Yes,
and when you make that routine, like, you know, in other times, like, it's little moments of prayer that will make it when you need, we're facing something really challenging. Mm-hmm. It's already wired in your brain just to start praying. It doesn't even have to be something spontaneous. Like, it can just be Hail Marys over and over and over again until you find comfort in that. Yeah. Which, I mean, you will, because Mary's going to watch out for you, and through her intercession, God will watch out for you, and Jesus is going to obey what her mama said, or his mom. Not her. Okay. Yeah.
You will obey what her mama says, too.
Yes. Yeah. After a 10-hour car ride with my mom, she knew exactly what to do, so I will definitely, she's listening to this podcast, too. Hi, Mom.
I'm a child.
Little shout out. So anyways, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. So thank you. I don't even think I got to most of the questions that I have, but I'm very content in this conversation, and I know that a lot of people are going to get a lot out from it because you were just so wise and you've learned so much and you've lived such a long life in such a short amount of time, and I admire your bravery and your confidence and everything. Despite what you've been through, that's very admirable. So thank you so much for coming on this podcast, because I know that many, many people will get a lot out of what you've had to say today. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.